Welcome to Hollywood Changemakers, a podcast by entertainment industry professionals who want to talk about the issues that impact our culture from a new perspective. Faith, this is Hollywood Changemakers.
Welcome to the Hollywood Changemakers podcast. I'm Karen Covell, head of the Hollywood Prayer Network, and I get so excited to be able to interview friends of mine in Hollywood who have great insight for people listening to the podcast on what in the world is going on in Hollywood, especially from the perspective of a Christian following God, having a career here, but also wanting to make an eternal difference through our relationships, our friendships, and our lives. So I am here today with a dear friend, an amazing woman of God, Edwina Findley-Dickerson. She is an incredible actress. She and her husband, Kelvin, have a huge impact here. They have a ministry, Abundant Life U, that I'll ask her about. She cares so much about people. She loves God so much, and she is excellent at her craft. And so I'm excited to talk about a topic today that we both love, and that's what in the world does a Christian do who comes new to Hollywood? So I want to introduce Edwina. Edwina, I am so glad you're here.
I'm so excited. I think I might be more excited than you.
I don't know.
I love her, everyone. She's amazing. Yes. Thank you for having me.
Oh my goodness, it's such an honor to have you. And we could talk for 3 hours.
Yes.
And we may have to come back and do it again. But I just want to have you start by saying, how in the world did you become a Christian?
Oh my goodness. Okay. So and some of you may recognize this, some of you who are really saved. When I was a kid, probably about 5 years old, I started doing performing arts. I mean, I was raised in a Christian household, but performing arts kind of really is what lured me into the church and into ministry. And so every year we do this musical called Salty's Christmas Calamity.
I knew Salty.
Salty the Singing Songbook.
Yes!
That was the jam.
I love Salty.
Right. So that got me involved in creative arts, but it also grew me closer to God. So by the time I was 8 years old, I was sort of raising my hand like, Mommy, I want to be baptized. And yeah, that sort of began my Christian journey.
So it's been your whole life.
Oh, yeah.
Oh, my goodness.
Yeah.
And what would you say was the best part of being a Christian to prepare you to come to Hollywood?
Yeah. Well, I think one of the biggest blessings and probably biggest gifts that I had before coming to Hollywood was being able to hear God's voice.
Oh, yes.
That was the biggest thing for me, was being able to hear him and trust that he speaks, to be able to trust that he leads, and that he would go before me and set things up, and that I could just listen for instruction on what to do prior to coming. So that, I would say, was the biggest benefit and blessing that God gave me.
Well, and you had a gift, which it really is, of growing up in a Christian home, so you had the maturity to know God's voice. I know a lot of people want to, but they're unclear about, is that me? Is that my selfish desires? Is that God? Is that somebody telling me something?
Absolutely.
And so to have that maturity to know that is really, really beautiful.
Yeah, I feel like, for me, even growing up in a Christian household, as many people do, we all kind of struggle with how to hear God.
Yeah.
How do I hear God's voice? For me, it was a really intentional process of dying to myself. So, the Bible talks about humble yourselves in the sight of the Lord. He will lift you up in due time. And I just really felt that. I felt like God was saying, just lose your life, especially when it came to like being on the verge of coming to Hollywood. And it's so paradoxical, right? Because now's the time you're supposed to gain your life. You're supposed to do all the things you know to do. But I felt like God was saying, lose your life. And the one that loses their life will gain it. And so it was just an emptying out of, okay, God, I just release everything I thought I knew. I release all of my plans. I release all the things that I want. Can you give me your plan? And whatever it is, I'll follow it. Even if it's not in the entertainment industry, I will follow it. If it's in ministry, I will follow it. If it's to serve the homeless, I will follow it. If it's going to nursing homes, I will follow it. And that's a lot of what I was doing in that season. Just volunteering everywhere, ministering everywhere, just like, who can I bless? Who can I touch? While God is downloading to me what his plan is for my life. And through the journey, he began revealing
Now, did you struggle with impatience during that time?
Oh, sure. I especially struggled with impatience on things that I knew he was saying.
Oh, right. You wanted it to happen right away.
Yeah, because I knew he was saying, at a certain point, it was clear he was saying, I'm moving you to Hollywood. And there's a clear point where he was saying, okay, this is your husband. Like, there were different things that were like
along the way.
huge steps that I wanted. That I'm like, okay, well, then why isn't it happening yet?
Yeah.
I feel like those are the things that I got really impatient about.
And how did you handle the waiting periods?
Oh, yeah. So now, of course, everything is hindsight, it's 2020, right? Beforehand, it's like, what do I do? In hindsight, I realized that one of the best things to do in the waiting season is prepare. Once I got that revelation while I was waiting, it changed everything. Because while I was waiting and complaining, kind of like the children of Israel, waiting and complaining. How come it's taking so long? How come, and just feeling discouraged. Waiting can bring so much discouragement or impatience or just wondering, did I even hear God?
Yeah, you start questioning God.
You start questioning everything. But the waiting season, I feel like, is the best proving ground for your faith. Because what are you expecting is going to be on the other side of this waiting season. And I realized I have to hold on to everything I believe God told me and see it clearly. It must be a very clear vision. He's trying to impart to me vision. So I have to clearly visualize it. I have to clearly internalize it, that this will be. So how do I get ready for that? How do I get ready for becoming a wife? And how do I get ready for living in Hollywood? And how do I get ready for becoming a successful actress with no money in my bank account right now? Like, how do I do that? What's the process? And so that started me on a journey of preparation. So by the time he opened the door, I was ready.
Well, I think preparation is huge because I get calls a lot from people saying, God told me to come to Hollywood. Yeah. So I am packing up, I'm going in my car, and I'm heading out. And I said, well, how have you prepared? Mm-hmm. And a lot of them don't even think of that. And they don't know, oh, you need money to go there? Oh, you need some experience? Oh, you need to understand the process? Yeah. You have to find a place to live? You have all of these things. Mm-hmm. We get so excited when we do hear from God that we don't think maybe that's a step in a process. Yeah. Maybe it's not the answer right there. So I think preparation is really huge. If someone called you with that type of question, what types of things would you recommend for preparation?
Yeah. Well, first I would ask them, are you sure?
Yes.
Are you sure that God's calling you to this? Not to say that that's the only way to come, because people can come because they feel really talented or they know somebody or there's a big show that they want to be a part of. There's all sorts of reasons why people want to come to Hollywood. Mm-hmm. But the reason why I ask people about their calling is because for me in my own life, that's been my reassurance.
Yes.
That if something doesn't work out, if there's a few no's along the way, I still am able with confidence to know this is my calling, this is my path. God sent me here and he's going to deliver on this. So I try to find out, do you feel like you're being called? And the second thing is, right, exactly that, the practical things. Have you prepared, right? For an actor, that may mean, do you have a resume? What does the resume look like? Can I see your work? Right? Because a lot of times we're not the best judge of our own work. We kind of need to share it and get feedback, professional feedback.
And not just from your mom.
And not just from your mom, okay? Not just from your mom. Do you have a resume? Do you have a great headshot? Do you have a reel of work that you've done? Because when you get there, people are immediately going to want to know, what have you done? What can I see? And now, we're in a totally digital age. Do you have a great link that can show me immediately what your work is and why I should hire you or why I should represent you if I'm an agent or manager? Do you have money? Have ye any coins? Have ye any coins? Okay?
Reach it.
Because it costs money to sustain yourself in Hollywood, right?
It does.
So for me, someone told me, years ago when I got out of college, which was really just last year, but
Oh, yes, of course.
Someone told me that you should have $10,000 saved before coming here. Now, everybody's not going to do that. Not everyone's going to have that, but that became my goal, right? When I felt like God was calling me, it was like, okay, what can I do right now? Let me save my money. And I'm glad that I did, because coming out, there's for most people, there's that transition phase of, okay, I need a place to live. Okay, you need a deposit, and what is it going to cost per month? And I need a vehicle. I was coming from New York, so I didn't drive there. Yeah. I needed a car, right? Like, there's just certain things that you need. So it's good to know that you have an emergency fund or a nest egg or whatever to sort of sustain you for a few months until you get on your feet. I definitely think, too, pressing into community.
Oh, yes. Talk about community.
Yeah, finding out, okay, who's here in LA? Where can I land? With whom? Before coming here, I heard all about the Hollywood Prayer Network. So you were one of my first stops.
Oh, I love it.
I got on the web. I looked at your website. There were events coming up. And so I knew when I get to LA, I can go to one of these events and I can meet other believers in the industry. And that's exactly what I did when I got here. So there, I feel like being able to lay out sort of a game plan for yourself, whether it's financially, whether it's relationally, whether it's spiritually, and figuring out, okay, well, what churches are there out there? How do I plug myself in? And then, of course, the job situation, right? Like, okay, when I get there, how do I plan to support myself? Now, God may come in a whole other supernatural way, and you may end up being cast in, the biggest movie of all time. And if so, praise God.
Praise
He did
God.
it. Won't He do it? But if He doesn't do it that way, are you still okay with, being able to plug into a job, some way to support yourself while you're waiting for Him to manifest the bigger dream that's over your life?
Oh, that's so true. We tell people not only to bring money, but that to get to LA, the first 2 years you figure out the freeway system. Then you figure out who's telling the truth. Then you feel out the lay of the land. What area is better to live in? Every part of LA is a different world, really. Mm-hmm. You have a different personality for different parts of the city to live in. There, I say 5 years to really feel like you can start expecting to see things happen. Do you have any response to that?
For me, it was... I received a whole prophetic word about coming here. And then after that, it was like, okay, God, so I need you to go before me. Please, I'm willing, I surrender, and I will do my part. But I also realized that I need you to open the door for me.
And you had a fast track.
Yeah, and that was my, that was my prayer. And I feel like He answered that in ways where He went before me and created a job. Do you know what I mean? Yeah. And that's what then allowed me to move, because I was like, am I supposed to just get off a plane and then land there? And then what? That was always my question. What do I do after I land? Mm-hmm. Right? And so I personally, wanted to make sure in this partnership of me and God that He was showing me the details. Yeah. Right? But that took patience. That took patience. It wasn't overnight that I got all the different pieces. So yeah, I think some things you can really set up before coming so that when you come, it may not take 5 years when you get here, right? Like, it may take a year of preparation so that when you get here, it can start, it can start rolling,
No, that's really true. Also, a lot of people I find in the Christian community outside of Hollywood are afraid of Hollywood. And so families are hesitant to let their young people come. Yeah. Or one young man, he was wanting to be a director, and his parents were in ministry on the East Coast, an only child. And he finally, as a teenager, had the guts to tell his dad, when I'm done with college, I want to go to Hollywood and be a director. And his ministry leader father said to him, you'll come back in a body bag.
Oh, no.
It just caught him to the quick. And I know there are a lot of families afraid of letting their children come here. Yeah. One sweet girl came from Beijing, China, to be a producer in LA. And she stopped in Nashville, spent some time at a Christian college there, and when she was ready to come to LA, the Christians at this college said to her, you're going to live in LA? Do you know you're going to be beaten or raped or people are going to be horrible to you? She gets off the plane. She's clinging her purse, thinking someone's going to attack her as she walks off the plane, She gets met by two people at a wonderful ministry here, Act One. They bring her to lunch. They bring her to a place to live. They start loving her. She said, it was the most beautiful, welcome.
Wow.
She never had to worry. And she went back and told those Christians, no, don't tell that lie about Hollywood being so horrible, because there are beautiful people here as well.
You know, there's so many things that are coming up for me as I'm hearing that story. One is there's an actor named Wesson Pierce that we did The Wire together,
Yes.
and then we did another HBO series, Treme, together. And so he really became like a big brother to me, because Wire was my very first TV show out of college.
Wow.
So he really took me under his wing. And when I started asking questions about LA and moving to LA, and I've heard this and I've heard that, and I remember we were at dinner and he said, don't let other people's experiences dictate yours.
Oh,
I'll never forget that. I was probably 21, you know, and like asking these questions. He's like, do not allow other people's experiences to dictate yours. Just because it was someone else's experience does not mean it's going to be yours.
it's so wise. Yes.
And then also, as far as Christians speaking death over people, hello, where's your faith?
That's right.
Life and death is in the power of the tongue.
Yes.
And we will eat its fruit. So please, whether it's you that's spewing that or whether it's you on the other side hearing it, if you're the recipient, I rebuke that in Jesus' name.
It's not
That
in
will not
God's-
be my experience.
Yes.
And I can say it lovingly and kindly, but please don't speak that over my life.
That's it.
But that goes back to my first point, are you called?
Right.
Because once I realized I was called, certainly there were people in the church, I'll just keep it at that. There were definitely people of God who, even just going to New York for college, it was like, that is Sin City. You know, that's when it started, coming out of high school,
Yeah.
going to college in New York.
York.
New York, what? You know, and that's where it began. But by that point, God had already spoken to me. So I knew that whatever other voice that I heard, it is a naysayer. Whatever voice I heard was not from God. And he allowed me to hear his voice clearly and know his voice and be able to discern if there's another voice that's not his. And I'm grateful again so much for that, right? The ability to hear God's voice, because as a result, you know, I said, well, I'll be okay. I'll be all right. You know, I'm sorry you don't agree, but this is the path I'm supposed to take. And God has kept me throughout that path.
Oh, it is so good and so wise. And as you're here now, you've got children, you've got an amazing husband. I'm in love with your girls, you know.
I thought you were going to say I'm in love with your husband.
No, I love your husband is great.
I'm in love with your husband.
But I'm in love with your girls.
Because he's the best. Jim Covell is the best.
Well, I think Jim and Calvin are right on par with each other, I tell you. Oh my gosh. But along the way, with community, with church, with fellowship, how do you tell people who come here how to get involved?
Yeah. I mean, like I said, you know, with the internet, there's very little that you can't find. And as well as figuring out, like, who are your people before you come? Hopefully, you know at least one or two people. For me, it was David Oyelowo. So we had done a movie. We did a movie together in Prague and Croatia while I was still living in New York.
Wow.
And that's how we met. And he became the chaplain on set.
Oh.
And his wife was there and his kids and everybody, you know, out in Europe.
And they're an amazing
And they're
family.
a wonderful family.
Oh.
And they're the ones I kept coming to, like, okay, I feel like God is speaking to me about Hollywood. What is God doing in Hollywood? What church do you all go to? At the time, they were hosting a Bible study in their home. So I knew, okay, when I come, I'm going to roll right on into that Bible
You're
study.
okay, yeah.
Right? Like, I know them, and I know their family, and I know that they have God's heart. And then it was like, okay, what church? And I started visiting churches and ended up at one church that I found out all these people that knew me from different walks of life, that I was like, oh my gosh, wow, I'm kind of walking into a community that I didn't realize I was going to stumble upon, right? You know, and then of course there's affinity groups, right? Like, are you single? Are you married? Are you really into surfing? You know, whatever it is, right? Like being able to figure out, like, what are some of your hobbies and try to create community or join communities that are already united around things that you love and are passionate about. And then there's also acting classes, music classes, you know, and you find other artists who are as passionate as you are and who also help you to, you know, to elevate your craft as well.
Oh, it's so true. There are, I didn't think until you said it, affinity groups are so amazing. There is a group of people who go rock climbing. the indoor rock climbing, outdoor rock climbing. It's this amazing group of believers. They're all close friends. They have each other, and they have formed this community. We started something through the Prayer Network just recently, a hiking group.
Oh, cool.
Where people go hiking together. They walk to
you all hike
Wisdom
to
Tree and the Hollywood sign, and they're meeting again next month. There's a group of comedians who get together and not only have community, but they work on their acts together, their sketches. There are so many different affinity groups. We try on the Prayer Network to give lists of everything, the events, the groups, everything, lists of churches, lists of ministry groups, everything like that. But like you said, just walking out into what you're interested in opens up doors of finding groups of people that you can get in touch with. And we shouldn't just be friends with Christians either.
Yeah.
We need to be friends with
everybody. That's what I said.
everybody.
I mean, acting classes and music classes, depending upon what you're coming out here for, improv groups, like there's so many different things that are just centered around arts and entertainment, if that's why you're coming. That, again, can just push you to another level. And that's one of the things that I did, too, when I got here, which was really great.
And you're always training, always working, always getting better at what you do. I think that's a process. I think there are some people who come out and they're ready.
Yeah.
And we're never, ever totally ready. We have to keep growing.
I thought I was, because I'm like, oh, God gave me signs and wonders and miracles that I'm coming here. So I thought as soon as I land, like, okay, every audition I go on, I'm booking. And I'm going to, and then it was like, why am I going on all these auditions and how come I'm not booking them? What's happening? And I remember telling Kelvin, and we were still dating at the time, we weren't married yet, and I would call him on the phone like, how come I'm not booking and God gave me this promise? He's like, maybe you should get back into acting class. I'm like, maybe you should mind your business. Because I teach acting, I speak, I do all these things, I have a career already. He's like, I understand, but there's always another level. And sometimes you just don't even know what you don't know.
That's right.
And that takes humility to say, regardless of what all you did before, maybe get back in a class.
Get a new perspective.
And and it has been, I have lived by that now. I have lived, I've received nominations for certain roles that's like, I never could have done that role had I not had put myself in a class and put myself with a coach and expanded my craft and my insights. I wouldn't have been able to execute that. So I'm glad now that I have that revelation, that no matter how high you think you are or how wonderful people think you are as far as your craft, that there's still another level.
There is, and there's always something more to learn. If we think we're done learning, we're done.
Yeah.
I mean, there's just, and the idea of being curious, I think, is really important.
Yeah.
To ask why, to learn more, to reach out and see what I don't know, what I can experience. I just think that that's a wonderful quality to have.
It's vulnerable, right? It's hard to do. But when you release yourself to that, it invites so much more.
Yeah. And what would you say helps you to continue to grow spiritually?
Yeah. Well, definitely, I think disciplines, right? So the church that I came from in New York, that's Dr. A.R. Bernard, Christian Cultural Center. And he would talk a lot about spiritual disciplines and how you don't want to get too far away from them. So it's almost kind of like the whole acting class or music class, right? You might feel like, I'm a professional singer. Why do I need to have a music coach? But it's like the consistency and the repetition is what's going to keep that muscle strong. It's going to keep your voice, languid, and you hitting those high notes to consistently be able to hit them, right? And it's the same with our spiritual life. If you were praying before getting here and then you get here, it's easy to get distracted here. Listen, I know, I've experienced it. It's easy to get distracted here. But if you keep going back to what you know and don't part from it, even the Bible teaches us that, keep praying, keep fasting, keep going to church, stay in a community. Those spiritual disciplines are going to help fortify you and grow you. Because I think what a lot of people don't realize is that when you cross over into this land, there are a lot of things waiting for you spiritually.
Oh, yeah.
Right?
Good and bad.
So, right. And so if you have like with me, it was almost like the children of Israel. Like God took them in the wilderness and poured out all this stuff and downloaded to them his law and his character and his plan and where he was taking them. But he was doing that as an investment in them so that when they got to the promised land, that they'd be ready, that they would also know what not to do, where not to go, who not to associate with, and also what to do and where to go and how to live this new place. Yes. And so, but being able to act that out or execute that requires a connection with God that doesn't end when you come out the wilderness, right? It has to continue so that we'll win, so that we will be successful in the promised land. By all means, don't die out then. You know what I mean?
Don't stop now.
Yeah, don't stop now. So just to answer your question about continuing to grow spiritually, I think I had to get the revelation that, oh, this isn't the end. This isn't the pinnacle of, oh, I did all that spiritual work and now I'm here. Done. Right. It's like, oh, this is an invitation to another level. And it's an invitation to new obstacles. So I have to be fortified spiritually to be able to handle the new obstacles that come in the promised land.
Yeah, it's really true. It's really true. And one of the things that I bring up to people is in that process, you're going to hit the wall. Everything does not go our way.
Yeah.
We are going to come to a place of going, oh my gosh, what have I done? And I say, you're in really good company because it happens to all of us. It's a part of the process. And if we're in community, we can talk about it and realize, oh, you went through that too? Oh, you mean it's okay? I can keep going and pull myself together and move forward. And I think that understanding that, as you said before, if God calls us, that doesn't mean everything's going to be perfect.
Right.
It means he's with us along the way. And that we can face obstacles, we can get discouraged, but we don't have to give up because he's there and he knows it.
Absolutely.
I think there are 3 things that the enemy attacks people in Hollywood that I see are the strongest. And I'd love to get your response to this. I see that God helps us to grow through 3 fiery darts of the enemy. Isolation, discouragement, and fear. How do you respond to any of those?
Wow. I mean, I think they're all right on point. One other thing I think I would add is identity.
Oh, identity, you're right. That's a really good one too.
Yeah. It's interesting because even if you think about it, when Jesus was about to launch into his ministry and came up against that, it was kind of like that last test with Satan coming, after him and offering him the world. And, but he kept questioning his identity. If you're the Son of God, if you're the Son, everything is if was Satan, if. But you have to know who you are.
Yes.
And who God's called you to be. So I feel like your identity will be challenged here. You will be challenged to try to become something that you're not here. So knowing that up front and knowing how to find your center and how to find your center with God and who God's called you to be and be able to lockstep with him, in confidence, or as they say, Godfidence, I think that's really important. And certainly all the other 3 things you said, discouragement. I don't know one person from Oscar winners on down, Grammy winners, Oscar winners, multimillionaires, billionaires. I don't know one person that does not face discouragement in this landscape. I just don't.
I don't either.
As far as isolation, I don't know one person that has not come, has not felt that element of isolation. And here it's difficult to pinpoint because this is a very social place, right? So you can be at events every night of the week if you want to. You can be on red carpets every day if you want to. But you can still go home and feel a sense of isolation, like you're not fully in community, right? Because many of us left our home. Many of us left our friends, left our family.
Left very close relationships.
Yes, and moved here. And so here requires that you create it, right? That you create a sense of family here. Yeah, and fear is a big one too, whether it's fear of failure or even fear of success. I've certainly experienced both. So but all the things that we're naming, and I'm so grateful that you named them so specifically, because then we can do something about it, right? When we've identified, oh, that's fear. I'm feeling discouraged. Okay, that's what that is. Oh, that's isolation. Let me make sure I'm, connected. Or whether it's, you're trying to come after my identity and who I think I am and who I know I am based on what God said. Those things we have to safeguard. We absolutely do.
And our culture now is really attacking identity. It's really, really true. One time years ago, Pastor Tim Keller came to LA and was speaking about Los Angeles and New York and the similarities and, the lifestyle of Christians in both cities. And he said he felt like the people that he knew who came to LA, the three reasons why he found them coming all had to do with identity. They were either trying to re-identify themselves, start again, or they wanted to create somebody new because they didn't like who they were, or they were trying to get the affirmation from their father that they never got.
Wow.
And that he talked about the importance of having our identity in Christ, and you just nailed it. And really, if we are strong in knowing our identity in Christ, we can handle all those other things.
Yeah,
it's really, really true. And our culture is attacking that right now, and we have to be aware. And then again, you have community, you talk about it. You know other people are dealing with the same things. You get that sense of a confirmation that, okay, this is a journey, but we're going on it together, and I'm going to be fine.
Absolutely.
Yeah. The last thing, do you think of anything that you would like to tell Christians that are either new to Hollywood or about to come to Hollywood?
Yeah. Well, I would say, first of all, take heart. Be encouraged, be inspired, be excited. This is a wonderful place to be. It's a wonderful land of opportunity. And especially if you're ready, right, and you feel like God is calling you, there are incredible people here, like Karen Covell, like the Hollywood Prayer Network, that will help get you plugged in, and that you don't have to feel alone. Yeah, and I would say get excited about the dream that God's giving you and where you want to be and where you feel like God's calling you, and find your tribe. Find those people that can journey along with you and that have a shared mission and a shared calling, because that's who you're going to be linking arms with when you get here.
Oh, gosh, before we're done, I just have to thank you for a few things. Thank you for putting God first. Thank you for loving people. You have such an impact in loving people along the way. Thank you for being willing to mentor younger people, to pour into people around you, to keep God first and make an eternal difference. Thank you for your beautiful family that people get to, you invite people to your home, you let people get to know who you are. You're so open about your life, and you, every day, you're making a difference. And I just want to thank you. You are just so amazing.
Thank you, Karen.
Oh.
You too.
Okay, so you have to tell our listeners what you're up to now, how to get a hold of you, how people can find out and follow you. What do you want to tell us?
Oh, sure. So what am I up to now? So I'm filming a few different projects now. My family and I have been in London for most of the year, filming a new TV series and a movie there, and just finished a couple other movies. So I'm excited. So you all can definitely look out for me or follow me on Instagram. My handle is at Edwina Findley. That's EDWINA Findley. I'm at Edwina Findley on Twitter and Instagram, and Edwina Findley-Dickerson on Facebook. And then also, if you guys want to stay in touch or even become a part of my husband and I have a nonprofit called Abundant Life U that really helps young adults and helps artists to transition and get a lot of parts of life, figured out. You can reach out to us too. So my website is edwinafindley.com. There's a place where you can sign up to connect with me, and then also it's abundantlifeu.org, and you can connect there as well. And if you want to send a DM or shoot us an email, you can definitely contact at edwinafindley.com.
Oh, that's so good.
Yeah.
Thank you. And you should follow her because she's always doing something wonderful and fascinating. So that's great news. And then to also follow all the amazing things that Calvin is doing as well.
Yeah.
So that's through the Abundant Life U website. So that's really great.
Oh, yeah. And my husband, his Instagram is Kelvin.Dickerson, at Kelvin.Dickerson on Instagram.
Thank you so much for being here with us with Edwina Findley-Dickerson and Hollywood Changemakers. We are so glad that you joined us today. We'll be back for other episodes. And in the meantime, have a great day. Keep praying for Hollywood, and God bless you.
Thank you for joining us on this episode of Hollywood Changemakers. If you'd like to get connected with us, our Instagram handle is @Hollywood Prayer Network. Find out more at hollywoodprayernetwork.com.